Hey, welcome back to YouTube. Kevin Inoue here from Fight Designer LLC. I am gearing up for a busy week here. We've got Tech Week coming up for Gloria, which we'll be talking about in a sec. I'm heading out tomorrow morning to do another stunt training with Rich Fike, which I'm excited about. Haven't gotten to do one of those in a few months. But as a part of the Gloria Tech, we're trying something different here. So for those of you who don't know the show, spoiler alert, it does involve a shooting. It involves a shooting, including a point-blank shot to the head. So, while it's in a theatrical space, front-venting blank guns are out of the question. And really, any kind of blank gun, it's going to be too loud, even for the audience, let alone for the actor who's got to have it right next to their head. So then we're looking at what other options we can use for these firearm effects. So we're going to try something that I have not tried before. I had this idea. We'll see if it works. I'm hoping it will. But it involves gas blowback guns. And they were a little late ordering the gas, so I've got some that they can maybe use, but I'm also wanting to try out something new here. So I have had for a while these propane adapters, but I've never actually tried one out. So what I wanted to do today is see if propane adapter will work. And how it compares to the green gas as well. Because if it does work, it is cheaper. Propane is certainly cheaper and easier to find than green gas. You can get it at pretty much any hardware store. So first let's test this prop with a little green gas, put the propane adapter in, see how that works. Alright, so this prop here, this is a SIG replica, SIG P229 replica. Who is this by? Does this even say here? I don't even know. Doesn't even say. I think this is one of the ones that I got used. So first we're going to try this off with an almost empty can of Air Splat green gas. Now these smaller cans are a little more convenient because they fit into a gun case, but they don't hold as much. And it doesn't take long before you hit a point where you only get a couple shots out of it just because of how much pressure is left in it. So let's see how this works. This is a plastic gas blowback. Not bad. Fairly crisp. And there we go. Now it's, it's just not quite having enough oomph to get it forward back in the battery as the gas runs low. Interesting. And this is a single action only prop. So the hammer has to be back, but as the gas gets low, it's not pushing forward all the way in the battery. I could probably try lubing this up a little bit, see if that helps. Get a little silicone oil in there, but for now, that was actually more than I expected to get out of that can of green gas. It's not bad. Alright. Yeah, now it's empty. So, I took my soldering attachment off of this can of propane. I sometimes use it with silver solder to work on sword parts and knife parts and things like that. Although lately all I've used it for is, since moving, is starting my barbecue, which the igniter's working on. Yep, interesting. And fell off. This is just a little extension. Huh, this is over the top there, but it, oh, I see. So as you push in that, they look like they're the same size. I don't know if it matters. I'll try without that. Now, they do have these in both plastic and metal. These are different sizes. And I have heard that the metal ones sometimes damage the magazine, so I'm going to start with the plastic one, see how this works. Seems to be loading okay. So now let's see how this works with propane. Uh-oh. Answer is not at all. Interesting. Let's try loading this a little more. Looks like it's the right size. I hear hissing. I also smell some gas, which makes me worry that it's maybe leaking a bit. Doesn't seem to be going into the magazine. Let's try with this thing on and see if that makes a difference. And I did test this with the torch first, and I did get at least a little flame out of it. But I know this propane tank's also getting close to empty. Interesting. So while I'm getting the hissing, it doesn't seem to be loading into the magazine at all. Looks like it's the right size. There's not a lot it sounds like in the can. Uh-oh. And that's the other problem with plastic, is it can just break. This was apparently an old and brittle one, and it just snapped right off. Huh. Alright, well, that might answer that one. Not using this anytime soon. Alrighty. So this pushes that down, and there was a hiss, so I was getting something out of it, but it didn't seem to fill the magazine, and then went in slightly crooked and it just snapped right off. So that adapter is apparently a no-go. I'm not sure what that's for. Alright, so much for the propane adapter idea. So the good news is I have some extra cans of green gas. We're going to be fine for tech rehearsal. Give myself a little cut there on that, huh? So I'm not too worried about that. I just figured this was a good chance to try this little experiment, and I consider the experiment tried. Now, I'm not completely convinced that that's a hard no. I think it might be worth, because, you know, a lot of airsoft players swear by these things, so I think it might be worth trying that again with, yeah, it still has some flame in it. Might be worth trying that again with another adapter, a different airsoft green propane adapter, and an actual like full can of propane, because this one's been kicking around for years, and it's, you know, it may just not have enough pressure left in it. So it might be worth another experiment, but I'm not sure. Now, at the moment, I cannot seem to find that other adapter that I thought I had. So next part of the test is just to make sure I didn't damage the magazine at all. Answer is no. It still works just fine with the green gas. So I will consider that experiment failed for today, but we'll maybe try again another day with a different adapter, different propane tank. We'll see. But for now, not gonna happen. I'll keep using the green gas. Alright, PewTubers, I am back. It's been kind of a crazy week. A lot going on, working on 2 shows at once, and sick kids, and all sorts of other stuff. I'm joined today by Tybalt as well, who didn't want to let me have some space. I think he's been missing having me home some more. I just wanted to follow up on the stuff that we're doing with Gloria. This came out of a conversation I had with Beth, the director, about some of the challenges of doing modern firearms on stage, because blank firing props, the semi-automatics, which pretty much most modern guns are, can only do full load blanks, which are just too loud for most of our spaces. Plus the show Gloria has a point blank on stage suicide. So blanks are really not safe for something like that. Even if it's a plugged barrel side vent revolver with half loads, you're still going to have spray out the sides, and I just don't feel good about doing that. So part of our design for that show from the beginning was to use Gas Blowback Airsoft props. And what I wanted to try and do was mic them up and make this a part of the sound design. So we didn't want to go full on like theatrical reality, but what we agreed on was sort of this subjective reality. And so I'd seen it happen enough in cinema, film and television, where an explosion goes off and we hear the ringing in the ears, and everything else gets kind of muffled for a while. Baby Driver had a great example of that towards the end.
You did good, kid. But you took something away from me that I love. You know I gotta do the same.
I really wish you could hear her scream. Guess you'll just have to watch.
There's a couple others out there. I think Black Hawk Down is where I first saw it, but I couldn't find that clip last time I went looking for it. Yeah, a number of things like that where there's a gunshot or an explosion, and then we go into the and then everything else is kind of muted down. And so if we made that a part of the sound design for the whole scene, then I thought we could get away with a different distorted sound for the firearms. And if we hooked up a lav mic next to one of the Gas Blowback props, it would be cued right off of what we actually had And my hope was that we could pitch it down. We can maybe use that to cue up some other effects as well. Ken Ludwig's Sherwood, which Cleveland Playhouse recently did, they did a cool thing with the bows where every time they had lavaliers hooked up to it, so every time they released one of the PVC bows, it cued a sound of an arrow whizzing through the air and thumping into something. And I thought if they can do that, maybe we could do something where every time it fires off, not only can we add to that sound quality, but we can also, if we wanted to, tack on the sound of a shell casing hitting the floor, maybe a splat for some of these shots if we want. Those kinds of things could maybe be built in. So it was an interesting experiment. I hadn't tried this before. I also hadn't ever worked with this director, this sound designer before, or any of that. And they have slightly less fancy gear and software than Cleveland Playhouse, so there's some limitations there as well. So they ended up not being able to do the added-on sounds. And the director took things in a slightly different way of keeping the subjective reality, but more important to her, I think, was the emotional reality rather than the physiological reality. So, for example, while there is the ringing that comes in as a part of it, it's not directly connected in a cause-effect sort of way to the loud noise. The ringing actually starts before any of the gunshot sound. So it's more of a emotional trigger rather than an actual tinnitus kind of thing. And a couple other ways in which it ended up not being exactly what I was picturing, but again, not my show, so that's fine. But it was an interesting kind of proof of concept thing. We did have some challenges along the way. One of them was that they've got speakers located around the stage, which is great, because then it can sound like the sound is coming from different areas on stage. But that also means that if the actor crosses in front of one of those with the lavalier mic attached to her wrist and loud sounds coming out of it, then it's really easy to set up a feedback situation where things get really loud and obnoxious unintentionally, different from the sound design. So, having to adjust levels for that. There were times when it would pick up the voice and distort and echo that as well, and times when it wouldn't, depending on how loud it was and where we were standing. So it's not necessarily a plug-and-play easy solution, but as a proof of concept, I think the idea can work. I think it is about as effective as you're going to get for semi-automatics on stage in a house that doesn't want the full volume of a blank. Yeah, you don't get the flash. You get that, especially the downward shots, though. You can see some of the green gas coming out of the gas blowback prop, which is kind of nice. So it's pretty good. I think it'll work. The show hasn't opened yet. We'll see what other folks think when they see it. I think they have an artist preview tonight, the first artist preview. So it's a work in progress, an interesting idea. It might be something that I try and pull out of my pocket again and refine again for another show. But I thought other folks might be interested, since I know I'm not the only one who's had to deal with some of these challenges. But I did find that Cleveland Public Theater was very willing to work with me on that, very interested in trying new things, so it's always excellent to get that chance to collaborate with somebody on a project like that. Another problem we had with that, they ended up buying their own gas blowback prop. They wanted to. And they got I think a WE Branden 92 that I recommended for them, and it worked fine. But there were a number of problems with it, just kind of randomly the slide locking back during some of our tech rehearsals this last week. And it, the magazine follower was jammed down, so it didn't seem to be that. And I would test it, and it would work fine for me most of the time. And I think, what I ended up doing in the moment when I got flustered at one point was just taking it out and filing off the little catch on the slide stop, so that it just you can't lock back the slide anymore. But I think that'll be fine, and hopefully we'll solve their problem during this run. But I think I figured out what caused it. Maybe we'll never know now. But it's because they had the actress using it in her left hand, and I was teaching her to properly index, not have her finger on the trigger. And I have a feeling that something about the way that she was putting her finger along the side was hitting that slide stop on the Branden 92. Let me grab one for you and show you. So with a Branden 92 style gas blowback, this isn't the exact one we were using, but with that style, you've got this slide stop on the left side of the frame where it's very easy to manipulate with your primary thumb most of the time if you want to, but it's not something you're likely to hit accidentally. But if you're using it left-handed, this is not intended to be an ambidextrous firearm. I think something about the way that she was putting her finger up here was probably pushing up a little bit on it, which was making it more likely to accidentally stick back the next time it went back, is my guess. Yeah, and again, this is all kind of after the fact diagnosis, based just on my curiosity. At this point, the problem is solved because I filed off a little catch on that. But I think if you push up on that a little too much, yeah. I mean, I'm cheating now because she's still using her normal trigger finger. But I think something about the way that she was, and this is a different model as well, something about the way that she was holding it up here made it more likely. She had some downward shots too. Not sure. Yeah, this one's also looser. Hers was a little stiffer. So I have a feeling that something about the way that she was indexing it might have been getting this stuck up a little bit. Let's see if I can recreate the problem. I can't with this one. I don't know. Anyway, that's my pet theory for now. But the fix was just to take off the little notch up at the top of the slide stop that locks the actual slide back. And that seemed to do the job. I hope they have a good run. I'll look forward to checking it out, and I thought that might be of interest to folks. I do have some new gas blowback models that I got that aren't up on the website yet that I thought folks might be interested in. So next week you'll probably get a review of some of the Umarex licensed gas blowback Glocks. They've got a 17 and a 19. They look really awesome. They feel great. So I'll be throwing a review of those up probably next week for those who are interested in these gas blowbacks. And now that we know another possible use for them on stage. I'd used them with fake suppressors before, and it didn't quite sound right. But especially if you combined those, maybe the fake suppressor and the lavalier mic to amplify the natural poof kind of sound of it, I think that could be super effective. So, till next time, stay safe, look good, have fun, and I'll see you next time on PewTube.